Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday, March 5th meeting of the Tuckahoe Village Board of Trustees. Will everyone please rise and join me in the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the village clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Giordano.
Present.
Trustee Luisi.
Present.
Trustee Leo.
Present.
Mayor Eklund.
I am here tonight. I do not have any appointments tonight, and we were supposed to start off tonight with a presentation from our new county executive, George Latimer. I actually was sitting with him 2 weeks ago at a breakfast, and I asked him if he'd like to come and address our residents. But as we all know, the county is dealing with a terrible, terrible weather-related situation, so I'm sure that's what he's attending to tonight. As well, we're supposed to have our Tuckahoe school superintendent give a presentation tonight. And for anyone who has a child in the Tuckahoe School District, you know that school's closed because they have no power up there. So, so last but certainly not least, we're going to hear from the Eastchester Irish Committee. We have John Collins going to give a little discussion tonight.
Honorable Mayor Eklund,
Right.
esteemed, try this again.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Take two. Honorable Mayor Eklund, esteemed trustees, and of course, the omnipresent and keeping me on my toes, Village Clerk Camille DeSalvo. Greetings and salutations from the Eastchester Irish. My name is John Collins. I am a member of the Eastchester Irish. I'm one of the chairs for the public relations, and I'm going to be working in tandem with Pat Murtaugh. By the way, sorry, Deputy Mayor Giordano. Sorry about that. I try to cover everybody. Sorry. I'm here to propagate the good word of the Eastchester Irish, the 14th annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. And if I seem a little bit nervous or off my game, it's because, and Pat's going to talk about it, one of the honorees this year is my wife, Patrice Buckley. So I have to make sure I get this right. Our parade is scheduled for Sunday, March 11th at 3 p.m. As you know, and it's very befitting that I'm here before all of you and all of you out there, because the Eastchester Irish actually started in the village of Tuckahoe a little over 50 years ago. A man by the name of Phil Denning and two of his colleagues marched down here to Village Hall and filed whatever the appropriate paperwork was to begin the Eastchester Irish American Social Club. And I'm happy to say we're going into our 52nd year, and we're still going strong. And also, I'd like to tip my hat to the two founders, the two people who made this all possible, Jim Hendry and Tom Uvain. This parade is their brainchild, and we are forever in their debt for the hard work it took to cultivate what I believe has become an annual family-friendly event that everyone looks forward to. If nothing else, it hopefully will scare away winter weather and bring on the warm sun of spring.
I sure hope so.
Well, we'll try. Of course, as well, this parade starts in Tuckahoe at the parking lot of Immaculate Conception Parish, and with that, I do want to send a thank you, a special thank you to Father Sorgi and Father Conley, who are so patient with us as we put this parade together. We have our Mass at ICS. We'll be there at Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. As well, just a couple of mentions of a couple of the sponsors. The Green Line sponsors are Eastchester Urgent Care. Some of our other sponsors include New York Presbyterian, O'Connor Davies, Preferred Sprinkler Mechanical Corporation. That's a particular favorite of mine because that was last year's Grand Marshal. That's his company, Sean Mackin. He's a big supporter of the Eastchester Irish and the parade. And of course, one of our other sponsors, a long-standing sponsor, I might add, is Murato Properties. I believe that's Phil and Laura Raffiani, and those lovely people are always willing to help out with a lot of the causes that go on in Tuckahoe and Eastchester and elsewhere. So I just wanted to make a mention of that. We're going to, Mr. Mayor, we're looking at approximately 8 to 9 pipe bands, five to six other types of bands. We're going to have many civics associations. We try to have the veterans groups out there. The Tuckahoe Trolley will be on hand, and thank you for that as well. We are hoping to have warmer weather on Sunday. As far as I'm concerned, we're due for a nice warm day. We've had a couple years where it hasn't been as nice. The parade, as I mentioned, starts at ICS. It works its way up Main Street, where it meets with Route 22 and continues onward past Mill Road up to Lake Isle. So we're hoping everyone can come out. We're hoping everyone can be a part of this. It is a very easy way to embrace the Irish culture, and I do think everyone has a good time, everyone that comes out. So I'm hoping everyone here, everyone on TV comes out and gets into the swing of things and enjoys the parade. Now, without further ado, I just want to give the rest of my time over to Mr. Murtaugh, who's going to tell you a little bit more about our Grand Marshal and the honorees.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good evening, Pat.
Good evening, Steve. Good evening, board members. Mayor
Good evening.
Eklund. Again, thank you for indulging us, as you always do, with a few moments. I'm sorry that the others couldn't join us, but in some ways I'm glad because we have a little bit more time. And I know this has been a tough event that has happened over the weekend, and we're due another one. And I think, unfortunately for us, we've had one prior parade which we had to actually abandon ship. The last hurricane, I think it was Andrew, was it, John? I always remember. And when the town got hit badly, we hope that this is the final hit that's coming this Wednesday and Thursday, and that on the weekend we're going to have phenomenal weather. I'm here to talk to you about a couple of things. First of all, the honorees, and secondly, our Grand Marshal, who's a very special person, as you know. I'll start off with her because as a resident of Tuckahoe, Sheila is an incredible lady. When I did a Google search for Sheila Marcotte before Saturday's event that we had where we presented her with the sash, funnily enough, the first word that came up for Sheila in the Google search was Superwoman. Because, as you all know, Sheila is Superwoman. Unfortunately for the residents of Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and New Rochelle, Sheila did not get voted in this past legislative elections. Fortunately for the members of the Eastchester Irish and the people who turn out for the parade, that allows us to vote in Sheila as our Grand Marshal, because if you're an elected official, we don't, unfortunately, do that. We rather have non-elected officials, and we welcome you all to join us in the parade, but not as a Grand Marshal until you decide to step down and join us then as a parade member. But Sheila is a deserving parade member. What she has done not only for the village of Tuckahoe, the town of Eastchester, the county of Westchester, the city of New Rochelle, is too long a list for me to even begin to talk about it. I did have the fortune to interview her because this Saturday, and I'd like to thank Antonio and Steve for coming to our event Saturday night, which was a phenomenal event. Sheila did tell me a little bit about her history and how she got involved, coming from Framingham, Massachusetts, marrying a kid from Brooklyn and dragging him to the suburbs of Westchester because she didn't want to travel over a bridge whenever she went home. And Tom Marcotte and Sheila settled in Tuckahoe beside ICS. Always had a calling to serve and give back, and always had a love of history because her lineage dates back to the Civil War. Ironically enough, Sheila decided to join this board here when one of her own, Michael McHugh, lost his life in 2001 in 9/11. I'm sure if Micah was still alive today, he would be not here, but in higher office, because Micah was I did not know the man personally. I know his wife well, and his kids, and he would have been a superb politician, elected official, what have you. And Sheila was the fortunate recipient of that, although not something she was happy about. She was introduced into local politics by Sheila Clark, another prominent Tuckahoe resident, and just, again, the many things that she has done in this area. If you want snow shoveled from around your house, if you want, we had a member of the Eastchester Irish who had issues, an elder member, and Sheila was the first phone call that we made to see how we could get some help, and right away, within a matter of minutes, we had an ambulance and EMS service. That's the type of woman Sheila is. We all should aspire to try and do that. Not everybody can. Not everybody has a husband at home like Tom that allows Sheila to go out. And by the way, one thing I should have is the pencil behind the ear.
That's right. That's right.
because Sheila never went anywhere without the pencil behind the ear. And that was because she always was continuously taking note. So I'm not going to go on too much about Sheila because you all know her. She is the one, it's her day. She will be the Grand Marshal on Sunday, March 11th at 3 p.m. as we set out from ICS. Again, starting off in Tuckahoe. For those of you who've never been at the church prior to the parade, it is an event. Let's just put it that way. It's not a mass, it's an event, because on that day we have some wonderful singers. The mass is very special. It is about St. Patrick, we've got to remember. It's not about parades and flags and fun and drink and all that stuff. We are celebrating the patron saint of Ireland and the patron saint of New York, and he means a lot to us, more than just a parade. We start off with a mass, and this year, as with last year, we have a lady who is singing who you need to be there to hear her, because Kathy McGuire, excuse me, from Dundalk and County Louth sang at the St. Patrick's Day parade in the cathedral in Dublin, or in New York, and her rendition of Our Lady of Knock is just, kick-ass. It's amazing, and it will knock you dead. So please come at the end of the Mass. We always sing the 2 national anthems, and it is a special event, and Father Sorgi and Father Connolly and everybody else at ICS treat us so well and give us the opportunity to have the church at 10:30 Mass. So again, if you can't make it to the parade, make it to the Mass. After the Mass, we have a little cup of tea and some scones down in the lower church, which again everybody is invited to. So that's it about Sheila. Our other 2 honorees, as John rightfully points out, are 2 amazing ladies. We've got a trifecta of phenomenal, beautiful ladies, may I add, who are involved this year. Our trustee, or our honorees are Patrice Buckley Collins and Peggy Lynch, both of whom are married to gentlemen who do a tremendous job within the organization. Peggy Lynch, I'll start off with Peggy, wife of Brendan Lynch, one of the co-chairs of the parade, and puts all the logistics together. Peggy was born in Yonkers, one of 8 children, second youngest. Irish blood. Tommy and Mary Brennan are her parents, both who hail from, I'll probably get this wrong, I believe it was Mayo, but I'm not 100% sure on that. She attended the Anna O'Sullivan School of Irish Dance and placed in regional and national competitions in both solo and figure dancing. So tremendous heritage of music and dance in that family. She received her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from College of Mount St. Vincent. She went on to receive her Master's of Science from Columbia University. She's spent the majority of her professional career at Memorial Sloan Kettering. So not only does she give to the Irish, but as you know, Memorial Sloan Kettering, a phenomenal institution, and Peggy has been a caretaker of many people in there. And Sloan Kettering is always associated with a horrible disease, but there are some tremendous, wonderful success stories to come out of Sloan Kettering, and they're on the cutting edge of lymphoma research. She's currently working as a nurse practitioner at MSK's Urology Survivorship Outpatient Program. She and her husband, Brendan, have 3 children, Mairead, Kieran, and Aidan, 2 of whom are in the Tuckahoe School District. Mairead has since moved on to Catholic school. They've been members of the EASC since 2002. Her volunteer work for EASC includes numerous events. We are not just about a parade. We are also about many other events that we have. By the way, again, promoting EIASC here, doesn't take much to join. Any of you gentlemen on the board can join for $20 and sense of humor. Sense of humor is required. $20 is optional. But we welcome everybody. We want new blood coming in. We can never have enough. And these are 2 of the younger members, Peggy and Patrice. We really need some. We've always created this club about the children, and that's part of the parade. It's showing our culture to our children, to the children of Irish immigrants, Italian immigrants. It doesn't matter what it is. This country is a wonderful mix, and we love the cocktail that it is, and we just want to be a nice part of that cocktail, a sweet part of the cocktail, and we want to show everybody, what being an Irish American is, and it's something we're very proud of. Patrice Buckley Collins, what can I say more? First of all, she puts up with John Collins, which unto itself is a reason to be honored by any parade or any organization. John is always giving of himself, as you know. He's involved in everything in town. And Patrice behind every good man is a great woman, and Patrice is an amazing woman. She was born in the Bronx to Bridie and Pat Buckley, both from Kerry. She moved back to Ireland in 1977, lived here for a few years and then moved back. She spent her youth immersed in step and set dancing and playing Irish music. She attended Presentation Convent Secondary School in Killarney, County Kerry. And in 1985, the entire family decided to return to the Bronx, where they settled down and got heavily involved. Pat Buckley, for those of you who don't know him, is a gentleman who is kind of like Sheila Marcotte and gets involved in anything Irish in their culture and in their heritage. They belong to the Kerrymen's Association, of which I believe Therese is she is the auditor of the Kerrymen's Patriotic and Benevolent Association, so they get away with nothing there. She is also heavily involved. Her 3 children, Katrina, Connor, and Kieran, have carried on the tradition of Irish step dancing. They're champions in their field. They love music. They love dancing, as all Irish people do. We sing, we drink, we eat, we have a good time, and the Collins clan are a perfect model for that, as well as other things. She's a board member, and as I said, I went on to that. She's also on the board of the Eastchester Schools PTA Council, and they've been members of the EASC since 2004, right around the time that this parade started. Again, we are very fortunate. We honor ladies in our club in a big way. I think last year we had 3 honorees, and Sean Mackin was our Grand Marshal. And we are so blessed, because those of you who know what Irishmen are like, we're not the most organized at times, and we certainly need some organization. I can tell you my wife, John's wife, and many of the other women there keep us on our toes. And for those of you who weren't at the event on Saturday night, it was 2 ladies who ran it, and it just ran so smoothly and seamlessly, and we had a great time. So again, Tuckahoe, thank you for your time, Mayor Eklund. Don't want to keep you any further. I would love, as I always have done, Mayor Eklund, to ask you that at the end of the parade, or at the end of the meeting, you would honor 2 this time of the wonderful Stephen Quigley, who is again lost to us, another trustee,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
another good Irishman, and Michael McHugh.
Yes.
Stephen Quigley, unfortunately, left us. Both of them left us way too early, and both of them would have been terrific, and were terrific members of this town and village. And again, we thank you. We thank everybody in Tuckahoe. We thank you for coming to the parade. We thank you for listening to me and putting up with me for 14 years. And God bless, and we'll see you on the 11th at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, Pat. We'll see you Sunday. Okay. Thank you, John.
One editor's note, my mother-in-law is from Cork. I have to
okay.
get that in.
All right.
Sunday, March 11th, please, 3 o'clock, come out.
Good weather, too. Thank you. We have no public hearings tonight. That's going to bring me to the adoption of minutes of our meeting, the approval of minutes of the regular meeting of February 5th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Giordano.
Abstain.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Leo.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Okay, that's going to bring us to our first opportunity to address the board on anything that's on our agenda tonight. If it's on our agenda, please come up to the microphone.
Hello, Albert Stern, 14 Westview. I'm speaking about the budget. It's on the agenda, the village budget
The budget hearing item that's on
hearing.
Mhm.
First, I would like to refer to the Moody's upgrade of the bonds. I would say you're finally recovering from the 2014-16 budget, 2014-15 budget mess, when the controller spent over 2.5 years closely scrutinizing and overseeing it. Your budget has thankfully crawled to the midpoint of the Moody's rating scale, A2, which, by the way, is only halfway up their 10-step scale, so it is an average rating. It's 5 more steps up to achieve the town of Eastchester's AAA rating or Bronxville's AAA rating. What the Moody's report added and was not addressed is that the village has narrow reserves and a volatile tax rate with historical pressure from tax appeals. At this point, it looks to me like the village should start downsizing. Our property taxes are way too high compared to Eastchester and Bronxville. In fact, let's look at what's going on. These, by the way, these facts come from the Westchester Gov site, Anyone could look them up. We have the highest property taxes in the area. Here are the numbers. For every $1,000 assessment in property owned in Tuckahoe, you have a $540 charge. In Eastchester, it's $350. It's 35% less in Eastchester. In Bronxville, it's $310 per $1,000 assessment. In Scarsdale, very high-class community, they only pay $441 per $1,000 assessment. So we have about the highest tax rate, maybe in the state, but very close to it, certainly very high, if not top, in Westchester. And by the way, since 2011, our property taxes are up 20% per $1,000. Bronxville's up 8%, Eastchester 9%. It shouldn't be more expensive to live in Tuckahoe than in Eastchester or Bronxville. Village expenses need to be scrutinized for more cuts. Tuckahoe still has a bloated tax structure, and my question is, what are you going to do about it? In addition, and this is part of the problem, huge tax rebates have occurred each year. They average over $300,000 in the last few years, far above the measly $240,000 that you have unrealistically budgeted each year. The averages just don't work out. In Eastchester, which has 3 times the population of Tuckahoe and has also, like Tuckahoe, has not revaluated its property, its total over 3 years is $587,000 of rebates. In Tuckahoe, with a third of the population of Eastchester, it's been $1.26 million. Only a little of that going to homeowners, mainly to developers. Many of these so-called tax surcharge rebates are directed toward developers who get favored treatment. In 2015, the tax rebates amounted to over $800,000 given to a developer and to an institution. What did the board do? Including Mr. Leo, they disguised it and they avoided raising taxes. What they did is they issued a $1 million plus bond issue, basically hiding the reality that higher taxes are needed. What I suggest you do, and you have not been doing this over a period of time, is to do a property revaluation. It's very clear over a longer period of time you'll save money. Finally, would you run a business like this? You threw $8,000 to the building department without asking for any accountability, any records of mileage or gas used. Does the building department really drive around their village, racking up 15,000 miles per year at 56 cents per mile? You threw $5,000 at the village administrator without asking for any accountability. Does the administrator really drive around racking up over 9,000 miles per year at 56 cents a mile? By the way, he's not only the administrator, but he's now the treasurer. I don't think he has a lot of time to be driving 9,000 miles around Tuckahoe. Money's handed over supposedly instead of buying a car each year for the village use. None of the neighboring villages or towns have such a giveaway. And Mr. Leo never objected to any of these giveaways. More than one of you keeps reminding us you are a small business owner. Do you really run your business like this? Trust. How can village residents trust your judgment when it comes to their village budget? Looking at the sources of monies popping up at your village budget, what is most striking is the hundreds of thousands of funds coming from building permits. By the way, an unreliable source of funding. In the meantime, our village has grown increasingly congested. Our village is nearly overbuilt. The spigot of building permits will soon run dry. And where will we look next to prop up the village budget? Increasingly, it looks like the taxpayers will be next. So not only do we have a high property tax structure as it is, it looks like it could go considerably higher. And by the way, Mr. Leo has been silent about these concerns. Mr. Lang has never addressed any of them. Both have said nothing about the biggest project of all, the 5-story hotel going up any minute now on our Marbledale Road. But by the way, it seems that construction of the hotel building is stalled for no reason. And in the face of the extremely mild weather that we've all had during January and February, it'd be a good question to ask why there has been no construction. Finally, and I recall in one of my first conversations with Mr. Leo in 2015 in his new role as trustee, that he promised to look into the timing of the traffic lights at Main Street and Columbus Avenue. It is now March 2018, and I haven't heard anything back from him.
Thank you for your comments, and that's actually going to segue into, I am very glad that our new county executive actually was able to make it tonight. So I'd like to ask County Executive George Latimer if he'd come on up. Actually, and I told you I'm constantly saying I want to say senator. It's such a George, but you said George. Was there anybody else who wanted to speak about anything on our agenda? I had seen that. Okay. George, thank you very much for making it tonight. I know you've had a heck of a time in the last 2 days.
We've had a tough weekend, but
Yeah.
not as tough as all the people that are without power. We're
Yeah.
trying to do everything we can to pressure Con Ed and NYSEG in the northern part of the county to get this job done. And we're all very concerned about this snowstorm that's coming in, and we're trying to do as much as we can to be prepared for it. But I did, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you, Mr. Mayor, and your staff, outside of this. I came tonight to share with you something that we've established, that I'm making the effort to go to every one of the town, village, and city boards to discuss in person. It's an establishment of a policy through executive order at the county government. If I may, I'm going to pass it to your village clerk to.
Yes, please. Thank you.
This is an executive order that I authored on my second day as county executive, and it applies to most of county government, but not all of it. The district attorney, the county clerk, the board of legislators, and the board of elections fall outside of the control of the county executive. And this policy now, though, applies to all operating departments of the county, and it's been called the Good Neighbor Policy. What it basically says is this: where the county has any property, land, any assets or acquisitions, before we are to do any significant action on that land, our own land, we must go before the municipality that facility is located in and do a few things. The first thing is to brief your board, assuming it's the village board here, come and brief your board on what it is we'd be proposing to do. And that would be the commissioners involved, and the department heads, or whatever. It could involve sewerage. It could involve county roads. It might be something on the Bronx River Park Reservation, wherever the county has land and can act unilaterally in the same way that you can act unilaterally on your facilities that you own. But we have to come and make a presentation before you, televised, where people can come and listen to it. And that's not the way it's worked in the past. Usually there's some briefing. If it happens on a Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock in White Plains. If you can be there, you're there. If you can't be there, too bad. And then we're going to do what we want to do. After that briefing, there would be a 60-day period before the action could take place, which would allow your board to have a public forum on the topic, discuss what the implications may be, and allow people from the public to come and talk about whatever those implications may be. Is there traffic? Is there noise? Is there any kind of an issue that would affect residents based on what it is we're doing? I'd have to theorize what it might be, but the bottom line is this is going to apply all across the county, so it could be really literally anything that the county might do historically. Then after those 60 days, we would ask you for a letter of support, neutrality, or opposition to whatever the proposal is. Obviously, if it's support or neutrality, not a problem. If it's opposition, we're then required to go through what your points of opposition are and determine before we implement the plan whether or not we can address those points or whether it makes us redecide whether or not we should do this. All of this is stretching out a process of decision-making at the county because we want to respect what a village board, a town board, a city council may have to say on behalf of their residents. And I'll be quite candid with you. This comes from my own personal experience. I began my public career as a councilman in my home community. And where I was a councilman, the county has a major presence, parks and so forth. And the county would do whatever the heck it wanted to do on its terms. And as a duly elected official, as you are, we had no say and no input in it, no matter what the ramifications were. So I always thought this would be a great way to go. I didn't think I'd ever be county executive, so now that I am county executive, I can actually put this into force. We've also shared this with the Board of Legislators. They have the option to turn this into law if they choose to do that, which would give it an even greater strength. But the gist of it is to make sure that the village, in this case, the town, the cities, will have a say before the county does something which impacts you in some way, shape, or form.
Now, the biggest gray area in all of this is the word significant. What's a significant action? I made sure it was purposefully vague because I felt if I narrowed it too much, it could be used to exclude certain kinds of actions. If we only said this type of an action or that type of an action. And so what's significant would be is subjective, and it might involve you determining that something that we're planning to do is significant, in which case you'd write a letter to the county and saying, we believe the action that you're planning to take is significant and we want to apply the good neighbor policy, come down here to Tuckahoe and explain what it is you're planning to do. So with that thought in mind, I do want to take up a long portion of your evening. I'm happy to come back to discuss other issues along with your county legislators as you see fit. But I'm happy to take any questions on this.
I think it's wonderful. Thank you. Did you need us to memorialize this in any?
Nope.
Okay.
All I need to do is put it into effect.
Okay.
It's already in effect.
Right.
And so I guess the biggest thing would be if you're aware, I'm aware of anything that affects, for our purposes here, Tuckahoe, then by all means, let's have a dialogue about it and let's go through the process.
The county doesn't have an awful lot of assets in the village of Tuckahoe. I know that Main Street out front, we've asked our new county legislator if he would look into it, and I guess I'll ask you as well, too. We've been looking to get that repaid, so we were hoping last year there was a chance that it was going to happen, but for whatever logistical reason, it could not happen. It didn't. So we're really hoping this year it's torn up. We maintain it in terms of snow plowing, but we don't, fill potholes and things like that. So, right. So it really does need
I mean, normally what happens is we put it, as you do it in your case, we put it on our capital plan. And the budget that I'll be responsible for will be put together starting sometime this summer, delivered in November to the Board of Legislators, in theory adopted for 2019. So we'll try to keep that as a priority. I don't know where we stand in all the different road work projects. I know that when I was a county legislator years ago, I fought, like a devil to get money into my district, and every legislator does that.
Right.
So what might be a helpful thing to do is just contact our office and let's have a few people come out and just sort of walk it with you.
Right, of
so
course.
You can point out what the particular concerns are, and so there's a visualization of it, and that might help prioritize it better when the capital comes around.
One other thing, because it was brought up with the speaker just before you, and he's brought it up a few times, and I don't know if you realize it, but I sit on the board of the WMOA, and so we're constantly every month talking about tax tertiaries and reval. Do you see a possibility of a countywide reval in the future?
Well, back in the 90s, along with Paul Noto, who was the Republican leader of the board, when I was the Democratic leader of the board, we were supportive of an initiative by Andy O'Rourke to try to get a countywide revaluation. Unfortunately, it did not have enough support to advance. It has to be approved by the state legislature as well, because the power currently belongs to the towns or to the municipalities. If you think we ought to undertake that, then I would say that would be helpful to hear a form. You talked before about memorializing something. That would be something of value. And I would even suggest you go back to your various municipal officials. If we have near unanimity from the local governments, and they all say, yes, we want to do a reval, but we want the county to do it, because it's less expensive, obviously,
of course,
if we do it per parcel, and then whatever other arrangements we have to do that. It would rationalize your local taxes. It would rationalize the interplay of county taxes, because right now between towns and cities there's an equalization rate. It's a mystical formula that none of us really can understand. And we might pass as a legislature a zero tax levy. Some community goes down, some community goes up, and it has to do with the property value, what happened to the assessment roll of that property. All the taxpayer knows is my taxes went up.
Right.
And and obviously if somebody's goes down, they don't express how happy they are, but if it goes up, they express how unhappy they are. So clearly that's worth it. But if you can, and I would say even less so your board and more the municipal officials, if there can be a clear statement of support for that initiative, then we'll certainly pursue it.
Well, I'm sure we would do that for sure. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate the visit. I'm happy to come back to discuss other issues. And
Well, you have your hands full. I'll tell you, I was on that 2 o'clock emergency telephone call, and when they finally get to Tuckahoe, we're towards the end of the list. And after listening to all the municipalities in your jurisdiction in the county, people don't realize how bad things are north of, from Bedford north. I couldn't get over today. Some municipalities, 80% without power.
Somers in Yorktown
terrible.
are 80-90% of the people out of power.
Unbelievable.
And it's one thing to say this is Saturday, the storm hit last night, Friday.
Right.
Trucks and crews are out there. We can't get to them all today. We'll get to them by Sunday. But now we're Monday night, looking ahead to Tuesday with the snowstorm coming. And I think You know, it was a storm that was underestimated in its importance. I don't think they recognized that this could be the storm that it turned out to be. This is the 5th most impactful storms as we've kept records in terms of wind blow and the impact on utilities. And then the second thing is they didn't knowing what could happen, they didn't call for mutual aid soon enough. Now, we're familiar with mutual aid from fire departments where you come from one village or town to the next. Mutual aid here involves trucks coming in from Michigan and Wisconsin and Quebec. And I was down last night at the staging area, Playland, to meet some of these guys who'd come in from around town. You know, it was 1,000 miles, 1,500-mile drive to bring equipment and manpower here to back up that which we had for Con Ed and for NYSEG. And so pretty clearly, had those guys all been here on Saturday, or say Sunday, and they were operative on Sunday, then we would have had a better head start on this. So there's much to be concerned about. We are opening a warming center at the county center, and different communities are doing different things along those lines. People aren't going to be happy until their electric is back.
Right,
It's as
of
simple as
course.
that. And that's the priority issue. And I have to point out, which you already know, but the first step in the process is for a professional person who deals with high voltage electricity to shut off the power, cut the live wires away before the DPW can get in and actually take the impediment out, and then bring the professionals back in and string up the replacement pole and rewire and then reconnect. And that is not a short process. And because we're dealing with high voltage electricity, we know it's very, very dangerous work. So it doesn't go fast like this. And that's why I've argued you need more crews, not just guys working longer hours, because you don't want them in fatigue situations dealing with electricity. So this is we got a mess on our hands. But we're doing our best, and hopefully
You are. I'll tell you, it's a really tough challenge. I must tell you that we dodged the bullet here. I mean, we had very few. We have a street, Winslow Circle. They've been some homes there without power. The Tuckahoe school system has been without power. That's domiciled in the town of Eastchester. So there's a large area up there that's.
I'm sure the kids are happy with that.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to go to
I would be
school
if I
probably
were you.
during their vacation now, I think.
Make
So,
it up.
yeah, they're going to have to make it up. I think they used up all their snow days. So, you know, it's a. I'll tell you what, I didn't realize how severe it was until I was on that call today.
So I think, I think the average person didn't grasp it either. I was working in my office until 5 o'clock. I saw the heavy rain. I saw the winds. I had no idea it would have this kind of damage. I started to drive around Friday night in this general section of the county. I came through Tuckahoe to see what I could see in Scarsdale and so forth. And I saw the beginnings of the trees coming down and so forth. But on Saturday when I ventured north, it was devastating.
Yeah.
Like every third tree went down, so it was pretty bad. Anyway, you have a long business agenda tonight. Thank you for the
Thank
interruption.
you. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
George.
All right, that was very nice. Thank you. And let's see, that's going to bring us to our resolutions. And our first resolution tonight is resolution number 1, authorizing setting a budget hearing for April 9, 2018, to consider a tentative budget for fiscal year June 1, 2018 through May 31, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Giordano.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
Favor.
Trustee Leo.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Resolution number 2 is authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Westchester County for the provision of enhanced E911 service for a 5-year term commencing on October 1, 2017, and continuing through September 30, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Trustee Giordano.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Leo.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. We were just talking about this. Resolution number 3, authorizing an amendment to the removal of snow and ice from county roads agreement with Westchester County for the period from October 1, 2015 through September 30, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Giordano.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Leo.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Resolution number 4, authorizing the sale of surplus sanitation to the highest bidder, Value Carding Corporation of Yonkers, New York, for the amount of $9,900. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And this is that old tired garbage truck that we're getting rid of, right, Frank? Okay, good. We got a nice brand new one rolling around the streets.
Trustee Giordano.
In favor.
Trustee
In
Luisi.
favor.
Trustee Leo.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. And finally, resolution number 5 is authorizing the approval of vouchers in the amount of $799.76. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Giordano.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Leo.
In favor?
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Pardon me. That's going to bring us to our departmental reports of the board. And we're going to start with our chief of, oh, no report from Chief Costanza. Mr. DeMarco has a small presentation he's going to give us tonight. I asked him if he would.
Mayor, board members. For sure, I'm predicting warmer weather and sunshine after this Wednesday's snowfall, but I hope I'm correct.
Well, I sure hope so.
We fared well. Everybody doesn't realize how well we fared at this last last storm, that windstorm that we had. It was sporadic. It was wild. You know, we had calming one hour, and the next couple hours we had windstorm. Then it calmed again, and then a windstorm again. But it continued to Sunday. But believe it or not, you know, we've only had 7 major limbs that had fallen in the village, and the only tree that fell was right here in front of Village Hall.
Yeah, the big one right out front.
Yeah, it was pretty big,
Yeah.
and it fell perfectly. So
Mm.
we were able to get to it today, and we didn't work on removing any of these trees on overtime. But that's really it. I just wanted to let everybody know that, Tuckahoe did fare well with this
Yeah.
last storm.
We did.
Frank, you also lost a tree on Gifford.
Excuse me?
You also lost a tree on Gifford
It was
at
a
the
limb.
Concordia. Yeah.
It was actually a big limb, yeah.
Okay.
Again, only 1 tree in Tuckahoe. Also, if anybody ever drives by the Department of Public Works, you see this big white canopy, and I'm forever being asked of what it is. It looks like a possible missile site. So I figured this is a perfect opportunity for me to talk about it. It's actually, I need the PowerPoint on.
You got
There we go. All it is a salt shed canopy that we built here by the men of the Department of Public Works. That's actually the finished product, and that's what it looks like today. It took us about 3.5 weeks to construct just the canopy, but it was major work that was involved in actually constructing this canopy. That's what it used to look like. And what we had is we had a tarp covering the canopy throughout the entire year. So even if you did get a rainfall, the rain will infiltrate through the sides of the tarp, and we would lose a substantial amount of salt during rain weather or inclement weather. And of course, it would wash away into our storm system, which was the worst case scenario.
Right.
The Department of Conservation recommended that at some point we install a canopy, so we worked it into our budget. But most importantly, I want to showcase the men of DPW putting up this canopy, most importantly with a substantial monetary savings to the taxpayers of Tuckahoe. And these are just some of the projects that we take on here at DPW. The wall that was existing, we never really got a chance to look at it closely, but once we moved the salt that was embedded in the back corner, this is the right corner of where that black tarp is, and it's up against our existing building. But when you look close, our wall has deteriorated drastically and compromising the integrity of the actual structure of that wall. So not only did we have to put a canopy, we had to build a new wall in front of this old existing wall. In doing that, we had to excavate, put a footing in place, and that's what it looked like after we had excavated. Pouring cement for our footing. Again, this is all done in-house. We had our mason build a new wall in front of our diminishing wall. And then what we did after that is we put a rubber membrane to protect the new wall from any salt deteriorating our new wall. Over that membrane, we built a pressure-treated wall to protect the membrane from any damage from our equipment and trucks. And that was a lengthy process also. And our carpenters did this. But these are not only our carpenters, these are masons, these are sanitation laborers. This is everybody at DPW working together in unison. When the trusses came, we had to actually put them together on the floor, then stand them up against the building. You can see how massive they were. And we had an 80-foot crane there to help us lift everything into place. These are the men positioning the trusses on the roof. And these are the trusses when they've been completed. Not only are the trusses, there's guide wires in between them to structurally support them from any substantial winds. And a perfect test was this last storm.
Yeah. Yeah, how did it fare, okay?
I was hoping not to find it on someone else's block.
I know, imagine that, oh my goodness.
But you can see the massiveness of this, on the ground level. And here we're putting the tarp into place and stringing it from one side to the other. And again, everybody working in unison together. And that's our finished product.
Wow.
A project like this, with all the work that was done, is a value of close to $100,000. These are one of the many projects we take on here at DPW. And again, with a substantial monetary savings to all the taxpayers of Tuckahoe.
I look at something like this and I think back of, I don't know, 10 to 15 years ago, and I mean, just the smallest projects, we were constantly having to call out a private contractor to change a catch basin or something. This would really cost, as you said, $100,000 easy, for sure. That came out great. That really came out great. Looks like something you'd see, when you're heading up the thruway to Buffalo or something like that, That's good, and it's protecting it, well, it's saving our asset, it's saving the salt. You can store a little bit more, maybe buy a little bit when the price is, a little bit more cost effective. You got to
Store it safely.
good, yeah.
Any questions?
That's wonderful.
It's really impressive, Frank.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and your men. That's
Did you want to ask a
Well
question
done.
about the salt shed?
How is it after the big storm we had on Friday and over the weekend?
It still looks exactly like
Looks like that, that's great.
no problems, no issues, and no damage at all. Thank you.
Good job. Good team effort down there. Let's see. Camille, did you have anything? Gary, anything at all?
Nothing on my end.
David?
Wanted to provide just maybe a quick update. I actually don't have much in regards. So I know the off-site work and the P-site work is obviously the hot topic down at Marbledale Road, and we don't have a lot to report on that. We're still waiting for the DEC's contractor actually submit to DEC their final report, and hopefully at some point they will do that in March. At that point, DEC will look at that report and make any determinations in regards to the P-site. So again, we have not been provided that data, it hasn't been validated. We don't have any access to that, but we're told that it is similar to the Brownfield site. Is not bad in regards to some of the groundwater. Some of the big things in regards to the off-site data that they tested was the ambient air and the non-detective TCE. So that's something we were very happy about. We spent a lot of time making sure that we hopefully address that problem. I just had that obviously the tentative budget will be filed March 20th. And then in regards to the storm, yes, Tuckahoe fared well. We do still have some power outages out still towards the southern end of the village. A lot of that stuff, a lot of those wires are being fed from Bronxville. If you look at the Con Ed map and just talking to people in Bronxville, they have a significant portion of their village still out as of right now. So obviously the school in Eastchester's out. So just a handful, probably 20 to 30 homes still in Tuckahoe. We haven't forgot about them. We're still on Con Ed trying to get them here as soon as possible. But as the county executive said and everyone said, it's kind of everyone's fighting for resources right now.
Right. And most of those, as you said, are from Park Avenue in Bronxville, heading up Summit. And I know they're fed from that end. We had that problem actually during the superstorm years ago. I remember that. So, yeah. I'll tell you, we dodged that bullet, and I'm like, wow, so what's going to happen Wednesday? I'm getting a little nervous. Keep my fingers crossed. Miscellaneous business. We will have a budget work session on March 24th at 8:30 in the morning. That's on a Saturday. Our next village board meeting is actually going to be our reorganization meeting. That will be on April 2nd, 2018. And then we will have a monthly village board business meeting on April 9th. That is going to bring us to our, Oh, actually, I have one more individual here, one department head. Mr. Galuzzi, if you want to come on up, and did you want to talk about anything? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Good evening, David. Good evening, Gary. Good evening, Camille. Nice to be here. A few fun events coming into the 218 season. The most fun the kids could have is this event I'm about to tell you about. It's for ages 1 to 9. It's our annual Easter egg hunt, and it's Saturday, March 31st at Parkway Oval Field in Tuckahoe. The hunt begins at 11 in the morning, 11 a.m. promptly, so be early. Please be early. We have 15,000 eggs this year. We had to increase it. The crowds keep coming. It's so much fun. And we have a DJ, so you'll have music down there. We'll also have 2 food trucks, a gyro truck and a Sloppy Joe truck. So we'll have food down there. We'll have music. Also, the Easter Bunny will be on hand, and the parents can take the kids for pictures with the Easter Bunny because we'll have a photo booth down there. So that's Saturday, March 31st at Parkway Oval, our annual Easter egg hunt, ages 1 to 9. Easter egg hunt each year is brought to you by Mayor Steve Eklund, our village trustees, and solely sponsored by the Generoso Pope Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it. All right, that's going to bring us to our Board of Trustee member reports, and we are going to start with Deputy Mayor Tom Giordano.
Thank you, Mayor Eklund. Just note that our next planning board work session will be on March 6th at 7 p.m. The planning board meeting is on March 20th at 7:30 p.m. and one of the items on that agenda is 187 White Plains Road, which is the proposed construction of a new athletic field by Columbia College. The zoning board meets on March 14th at 7 p.m. for their work session, and their meeting is at 7:30 p.m. I just wanted to make a note in response to Mr. Stern's comment about the reval, which I think is a good comment, and actually I'll parse that out. The thought about potentially doing a revaluation of our property values is certainly one that's worth considering, and we have. For your information, the community's information, the cost of that revaluation would be estimated to be about $2 million, which would come from the taxpayers. You know, obviously, something that would need to be paid by the taxpayer. So it would be a significant sticker shock up front. You do have to then weigh that against what you'd have in the following years, which would be a lowering of the amount of tax certs. But you also, every 10 years, would need to do to refresh those revaluations at a cost to the village. So
Actually, every 2 years.
that's right. So 2 years?
Yeah, it's every 2 years.
And $500,000.
So at $500,000. So you do have a significant, you know, in order to avoid the cost of the certiorari's, you do have a significant cost that would be borne by the individuals of the community. So it's not something that we haven't considered. There is some value in possibly giving it further consideration, but it's not something that you just flip a switch and do. So just wanted to raise that to the attention of the community. Also wanted to speak on behalf of my absence from certain village board meetings over the past several months. My day job has been extremely busy over the past 6 months and required a lot of external travel, which has prevented me from being at several of these meetings. So I apologize for not being here in person. I assure you that I am reviewing all of the agenda items and current in my communications with the members of the board and with our attorney and village manager. So apologies for not being present. Hopefully those conflicts don't arise as much as they have over the past few months, but I can't be certain. finally, I just wanted to recognize how good it is to see our Recreation Director, John Galuzzi, back here, and a pleasure to see him back and doing his job. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Trustee Luisi.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be brief tonight. The Tuckahoe seniors are undertaking a pajama program under the direction of senior member Irene Norman. And what this is an attempt to collect new children's pajamas, which will then be donated to a local organization. So the seniors meet every Tuesday and Thursday at Father Fodder Hall between the hours of 9 and 2. So if you do have new pajamas in packaging, please, if you'd like to participate, drop them off at Father Fodder Hall. And then the seniors will be celebrating St. Patrick's Day at, of all places, and there is no better place to celebrate St. Patrick's Day but at Rory Dolan's on Thursday, March 15th. And that is all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. That's always a good time at Rory Dolan's, that's for sure. Trustee Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Tuckahoe Public Library programs for March and April as follows. The monthly children's programs are kids yoga, puzzles and board games, sing along with Miss Elaine, arts and crafts, Legos, and story time. We also have special programs. Story time sessions will take place on March 22nd, 23rd, 29th, and the 30th, and it's open to children from 0 to 2 years old. Children's crafts, St. Patrick's cupcake decorating, that will take place on Tuesday, March 13th at 4 p.m. and it's from children's ages 5 to 10 years old. Kids Book Club, Wonder by R.J. Palacio, and that's for grades 4th and 5th, and that will take place on March 23rd at 4 p.m. The kids movie is a Smurfs Lost Village, and will take place on March 27th at 3:30 p.m. and it's rated PG. Bedtime sing along with Mrs. Elaine, and that will take place on April 11th at 6:30 p.m. For teens, the monthly programs are yoga, chess, Wednesday afternoon video gaming, and the special programs are teen craft, pop-up card making, and that will take place on Wednesday, March 14th at 4 p.m. Teen movie is Leap, and that will take place on March 26th at 3:30 p.m. and that's rated PG. Teen SAT math prep, and that will take place on, that will take place on Saturdays, April 7th, 14th, and 21st at from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. Teen Spring Origami Papercraft, and that will take place on Monday, April 9th at 3:30 p.m. For adults, the monthly adult programs are as follows. Wednesday movie matinees, knit and crochet groups, one-on-one computer classes, memoir writing workshop, and adult coloring. The special programs are the AARP Tax Help, and that takes place on Fridays through April 13th from 12 to 3 p.m. Changes from the Great War with Eastchester Town Historian Richard Farliano, and that will take place on March 7th at 6:30 p.m. Yoga for Beginners, and that will take place on March 8th, April 12th at 5:45. From 5:45 to 7 p.m. The Hendry School of Irish Dance, and it's a family event, and that will take place on Saturday, March 10th at 1 p.m. at the Tuckahoe Community Center. The Shallow Baptist Church Choir, and that's also a family event, that will take place on Monday, March 12th at 6:30 p.m. There's a Reiki workshop, and that takes place on Tuesday, March 13th, April 10th at 12 p.m. The TPL Book Club meetings, that will take place on Wednesday, March 21st at 6:30 p.m. and Saturday, March 24th at 11 a.m. History of Tuckahoe Marble, and that will take place on Thursday, April 5th at 2 p.m. Former Mayor Phil White will give a historical perspective of Tuckahoe marble industry. And then India Center of Westchester presents Cultural Fusion, and that will take place on April 12th from 1 to 3 p.m. And finally, the Song Pipers, that will take place on April 17th at 1 p.m. And registration is required for all programs, so please contact the library for your program that you're interested in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I have a couple of things to talk about tonight. One, talk about the storm. I'm glad that County Executive, still have to want to call him Senator Latimer, County Executive Latimer came and that was very nice. I invited him to come here, and I was really pleased that he was able to make it. I mean, he's had a tough job the last 2 days. But as I mentioned, we really dodged the bullet on this storm, so let's hope that we can continue to do that. I want everyone to just pay attention to the weather forecast because they are changing it about every 6 hours. We get emergency briefings from County Emergency Management, and the storm that's coming in Wednesday is definitely, as of this afternoon, it was definitely changing for the worst, much worse. So hopefully they're wrong, but we need to be very vigilant and paying attention to that. Over the last couple of meetings, there's been some inquiries about the status of some store changes in the village. So our village administrator actually did a little recap on a few of these. So I just want to talk about Villarinas, which is in the Crestwood section of Tuckahoe. That is, again, open. I noticed they're had their grand reopening, so they seem to be doing well. A lot of people have asked about the American Bistro, that's going to be a Mexican restaurant, and they're getting pretty close to opening that restaurant there. People have asked about the old Chase Bank, which is at the corner of Fisher Avenue and Columbus Avenue. Remax Realty is scheduled to take over all that space, so that'll probably look like I know there's a lot of realtors in Bronxville. You go by and you see the pictures of all the homes that are for sale, so we anticipate that. Orange Theory Fitness is going to be taking the entire retail space at 150 Main Street, which is the new building up across the street from the Main Street Park. So that's a lot of people are very excited about that business coming in. In the mini mall here, there was a fabric store that was there for many years, and they recently left last week, actually. But the hair salon, they're going to be actually expanding into that space. So that space will be occupied. And up on Jackson Avenue, where the auto parts store is, CarQuest, the plan is for the owner of that property is actually going to be putting in some new sidewalks, landscaping, so it's going to make that whole corridor there look awful lot better than it had when CarQuest was there. And there's talk about pause and play, possibly sliding over into the Richards air conditioning empty building, so that could be a change there. And there has been some redevelopment plans for the corner of Wallace, Limekiln, and Maynard, and that's getting close to finishing up. So there's quite a few changes that are coming down the pike in the village. As one of the residents had talked about Moody's, we were actually very pleased that Moody's took it upon themselves to reach out to our community to go ahead and take another look at basically take a look at our books, take a look at our overall financial picture and the financial health of the village. And they chose to do a credit rating upgrade to A2, which means that we're actually going to pay less money on any borrowing that the village has to do. And I think what's very important, though, is that they assigned a positive outlook. And they sent somebody down here, which we sat with and we had a discussion with. And his recommendation was that we actually were going to go one more notch, but Moody's is an extremely, extremely conservative rating agency. So they decided to go up one notch, but we're told that they're going to come back down in probably another 12 to 16 months, and there's a good chance that they'll probably, hopefully they'll make another notch upward again. I've been working with my colleague here, Trustee Leo, over the past couple of weeks and looking at the proposed soccer field and the light tower enhancements from Concordia College over at their soccer field. For those who don't know, Antonio is an architect, and he was very helpful in bringing some clarity for me, certainly, for a whole host of lighting, light deflection, light diffusion issues. And we both decided it'd be best if we could meet with Concordia, with the president, Dr. Nunez, and Joyce Kennedy. Joyce is their community relations director. So, and last week, Antonio and we met with them last Thursday, and I felt that we made a very strong case for our constituents here in the village. So I'll read to you a text that I got from the president, Dr. Nunez, over the weekend. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Concordia College has decided, primarily due to your wise persuasion and intervention, to defer indefinitely the inclusion of lighting in its proposal for the renovation of our soccer field. Thank you for your leadership in Tuckahoe and for your support of our educational mission. So we just got that, or I got that, a text message from over the weekend. You know, Concordia is a good neighbor for Tuckahoe, and I believe that they took their time. They certainly wanted to hear from us, and they heard from the residents. So I think that's good news. It's going to be very good news for a lot of people who were very concerned of how those light towers were going to impact in that neighborhood. So special thanks to Antonio for helping me out on that. Your skills definitely came in handy. I didn't know if you had any thoughts.
Sure. As the mayor indicated, we met with Concordia and reviewed the project in detail. We discussed the proposed improvements to the field, and they're as follows. They're adding a new toilet team facility at the corner of Rose and Route 22. This facility will be tucked in a corner, which is the lowest point of the field. It'll be in a corner and won't be visible from the street. They'll be adding new bleachers, which will have the same capacities as the existing bleachers. They're moving the press box up to the opposite side of the field so that when there is so that sound is projected away from the homes and it's projected towards the baseball field. So that will be a huge improvement for this. They're also adding a drainage system to the field, which will reduce the water runoff to Rose Avenue, and this system will hold water and eventually transfer it down into the ground, and hopefully there will be no additional water sent down Rose Avenue. We spoke about parking, and what we know is currently the buses park on Rose, and they park perpendicular in that small parking lot adjacent to the soccer field. And that causes for about a dozen parking spaces to be lost. So now the new rule will be that the buses will need to park in a large parking lot between the baseball field and the chapel school. This will be written into the visiting team's contract, and a sign will be placed on 22 on event day directing the visiting buses to the large parking lot. This will free up 20 or so spots on Rose. And by the way, typical attendance at these events is limited to a very few people. It's generally parents and family and friends of the players playing the game. We discussed the lights, and there's a large community outcry over the installation of 6 60-foot light posts. I indicated that currently the field does not have any lights, and the college has managed to make this field work for their needs. We suggested that they keep their current activity schedule, which would make the field work for their needs without the lights. After further discussion, Concordia requested that they discuss this request with staff and management, and as the mayor indicated, Concordia decided to remove the lights. The project proposed without the lights, in my opinion, will be a great improvement to the village of Tuckahoe. I wish to thank Concordia and its leadership for being a good neighbor, especially Dr. Nunez and Joyce. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's going to be welcome news to a lot of people who hear that tomorrow. So that's going to bring us to our second opportunity to address the board. And anybody like to address the board tonight?
Evening. Sarah DeReese, 204 Dante Avenue. Originally tonight, I was going to come in and talk about communication, or what I find as a lack thereof of communication between Village Hall and our community. And on that theme, I happened upon a letter yesterday that was being circulated around the village. So I'd like to address first a few inaccuracies that are in this letter, specifically about me. And the first was that I was not a plaintiff nor a petitioner in the Article 78 that was filed against the village board. But I was one of over 3,000 people who signed a petition asking the planning board to authorize a full environmental impact study before allowing the hotel development project to move forward. This environmental impact study would have cost the village nothing, as it would have been paid for by the developer. But instead, the board was not responsive to the concerns of the residents, and that would have saved the village the $247,000 that they accused me of costing the village. I saw the brownfield development as a symptom of a larger problem, one of projects being pushed through without communicating what was going on to the village. So I'm thrilled to hear that the board was actually proactive in listening to the concerns of the residents in regards to the lights on Concordia Field. And it seems like we're taking a page out of County Executive Latimer's good neighbor policy and dealing with our neighbors within the village. So I really do commend you upon getting that done as soon as possible.
Thank you.
One of the other things that was indicated within the letter was that I'm back while others have faded away. But I want to make it clear that I actually never went anywhere. I've been here. I've been attending the village board meetings. Thank you. I've been to as many of the DEC community update meetings that I could attend when they were going on. I attend the PTA meetings, the school board meetings. I voice both my own concerns and those that are expressed to me throughout the community through different positions that I hold there. My kids are often lamenting at me, including this evening, about yet another meeting that I am going out to. But I do it because it's important to me to be informed and to be involved in the community and to question our representatives and ensure that those concerns are being addressed. I think it's a really important part of our democratic process. The campaign website for the Republicans this year touts community first as one of the first things on there. And it's certainly something that I believe in, but I'm asking if the letter that was written is a voice for the many of our community or the few, since 65% of last year's voters felt that they were not being properly represented. The backbone of our democracy lies in anyone being able to put their hand up and serve in honor of the people in their community and to act as their voice. And the government has never meant to be a one-sided rubber stamp majority. I'm disappointed that a sitting trustee and a respected member of our community would use such tactics. The first letter sent around to the local registered Republicans mentioned a backlash movement on identity politics. And this latest circulation is identity politics at its core. The residents of this village expect and deserve more. Our village level politics, the village level politics is not about the larger political identities that we hold as Republicans, Democrats, independents, conservatives, whatever you want to say about that. The jurisdiction that we would have in these positions just doesn't reach that far. It's about the people who live here, and it's about what our representatives can do to make our lives a little better and a little easier. And I think that the letter circulated this weekend makes it pretty clear that some of these issues are really out of touch with what the current community is thinking, and that's why I'm running and hoping to be a member of this board soon. It's to give the people in Tuckahoe back their voice. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your thoughts. Anybody else wish to?
Good evening, Omaira Andino, 14 Westview Avenue. I'm here tonight, like my running mate, to address the letter that was distributed across our community by sitting trustee Antonio Leo and Danny Lang. Danny Lang, of course, being Mr. Leo's running mate in the March 20th election. In their letter to residents, Mr. Leo and Mr. Lang attacked both myself and my running mate, Sarah DeReese, with numerous half-truths and outright fabrications. The letter quotes erroneous information about our personal backgrounds and about our motivation for stepping up and offering to serve. Mr. Leo and Mr. Lang's letter also made sure to point out that I'm not originally from Tuckahoe and came here from Peekskill, which apparently is not to their liking, and disqualifies me from participating in our democracy. It is true, I did live in Peekskill for many years and I'm proud of it. I played a key role in opening a choice pantry there many years ago, one that to this day is still helping to feed working families in need. I also volunteered in Peekskill's homeless shelter, helping residents draft resumes and hone their interviewing skills in order to find gainful employment so that they can give back to their community the way I have. I run an organization with a $15 million operating budget and 380 employees. I've also served on several boards serving local communities. My track record of service to the community speaks for itself, one that has moved me to serve here in Tuckahoe as well. The letter signed by Antonio Leo, sitting board member, and Danny Lang is beneath the office of village trustee. And it's beneath the people who live here, Mr. Leo. We don't need more divisiveness. We need unity. We need collaboration. We need to work together to find common ground, even if we disagree on some points. And yes, Mr. Leo, perhaps a dose of kindness and inclusiveness for those who speak here at this podium would serve us all well. What I find also unfortunate is the fact that Mr. Lang, a respected member of our community, which I grew to respect in talking to some of the members, in his first bite at the apple, has already prescribed to the idea that negative ads and personal attacks on his opponents are acceptable tactics to sway voters. Mr. Rees and I refuse to stoop to those levels, and we will continue to speak to our neighbors and our voters about our platform, and that will be it for us.
Thank you for your thoughts.
I'm here on the Winslow Circle and Concordia Lights.
I'm sorry, your last name again, please?
Colleen Staunton.
Staunton, I'm sorry, okay.
I would like to thank Mr. Mayor or Mayor Eklund and the trustees for intervening on our behalf. Obviously, lighting was a big issue. We do encourage continued conversation with Concordia regarding parking issues, safety issues, traffic, all along Rose Avenue. So any conversations that you do have, again, we appreciate the lighting. The residents took a very active role in reaching out and in letting our beliefs be known. So, we're happy that that's solved, but there still are a number of issues that need to be addressed, and we hope that those will continue.
They'll have a long process at the planning board, so you definitely want to go to the planning board meetings. And
Yes, and,
and
we've
yeah.
been there, and just, I think from what you've heard in the community, not just those in the village of Tuckahoe, and it impacts Eastchester and Bronxville. So, but, I just I was going to come up and ask what that proposed solution was. So we're happy to hear that the lights are off the table.
We're glad to do it. Thank you.
John Mariani, 8 Henry Street here in Tuckahoe, but born in the Bronx, raised in Eastchester, lived in Yonkers for 3 years, and then in Bronxville for 3 years, and then moved to Tuckahoe. So I guess that I did not deserve to be a trustee of this village when I was voted in for 2 terms because I was not born and bred in Tuckahoe. I would also like to mention that I'm a little tired tonight because the travails that Mr. Giordano spoke about not being able to meet his commitments, I really understand. As some of you know, I travel a great deal. I've been in 3 trips this month. And this morning, my wife and I got up at 3 o'clock this morning to catch a shuttle from San Miguel Allende, Mexico, to Leon Airport. 2 hours there, 2 hours to Houston, 2 hours in Houston, 4 hours to LaGuardia, and then another hour home in a Uber. And I thought it was still important enough to be here tonight. This is a midterm election year, and we've heard a lot about that on the various cable news, what that might mean come November. But this is also midterm election year here. The mayor is not running. And last year, as has been noted, 65% of the vote went to candidates who are not on sitting on tonight's board, which won by only 35%, which is not exactly a mandate of support, Mr. Leo, for your policies. As a matter of fact, if only 35% voted for Trump, he would not be president today. Well, in fact, he lost by 3 million votes, but that's okay. What I would like to know is, since there are very salient issues, some of which have been addressed tonight, will you be agreeing to a debate with the Democrats and the Independents? And can that be
Actually, I would
arranged?
ask,
Sorry?
if I can interrupt you, please, you can address me. And as you know, because you're a trustee, that I'm allowing people to speak their voice. This is a public village board meeting.
Right, you
But
did.
it's not an opportunity to debate or to, please, you know he's going to be here after the meeting. Why don't you ask him the question after the meeting? This is this is a village board meeting. I'm sure he would,
No, this is an opportunity to ask questions of the people who represent us. That's what a democracy is
That's
about.
right, and it comes to me,
Suggest-
and then, okay, I'm sorry, please go ahead, Mhm.
Are you saying that they are to be silent and only you are to speak?
You actually ask the question to me, and then I can pose the question. You know how
Okay, fine.
So, okay, so you ask the question,
I've been in office for
would,
25 years.
would,
I don't necessarily know the fine points, because when I was in office, there was nothing like this
Okay.
going on. You could ask anybody.
please
at
ask your
any time.
question, Mr. Marion. I don't want
Okay,
to.
would you ask Mr. Leo if there will be a debate?
You're asking a question whether there would be a political debate, and I'm going to ask you if you would please ask that question to all the political candidates
course.
offline, not at a village board meeting. This is not about
I've already
village
asked,
politics.
I have already asked. And
Then fine, you can ask well, you asked them not while they were sitting up here. You
how
can.
could they be sitting up there?
Okay, all right, I'll just be very clear. You're not going to get an answer to a debate question from me or anybody on this board. You can ask the candidates after a village board meeting is over, or ask the committee chairperson. It's not,
It is relevant that the community knows whether.
absolutely.
the
If there
running
is a
candidate
debate,
wants to be
100%.
involved in a debate.
Yes, if there is a debate,
If I talk to him after, please.
okay,
Mayor, please.
I'm sorry. Mhm.
If I talk to him outside in the hallway and I say, are you willing to debate, how would the community know if he's willing to debate? How? He's not allowed to, apparently.
I am doing my best to keep village business, not political business. And I guess I don't know how else I can say it. I'm sure that I'll speak for all the candidates. I'm sure they would all love to have a debate.
If time can be, okay,
Yeah.
let's move on to
Yeah.
something else. Well, I mean, what the other candidates here were saying sounded pretty political to me, and there was this letter which has been sent out to the residents, which need correction. Again, what does that have to do with tonight's meeting?
I gave them an opportunity as a resident to go ahead and speak. There's no, do you have anything else to address?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
In line with this letter, an email goes out that claims the village spent in excess of $250,000 in a suit thrown out by the court, which fails to mention that that suit was brought to protect our village from toxic waste by not just hundreds of people in this village, but thousands of people, including Bronxville and Eastchester. So to dismiss it as something, well, this judge just threw it out, having very, very little basis. He was using reports of the DEC, which were at the very beginning, 3 months old. But that's water under the bridge. But to say that these people who have faded away spent $250,000 of the village's money for absolutely some kind of extraneous silliness, when we pay $135,000, I believe, plus a car to the village administrator, whose job description is probably unknown to anybody in this room. I could read it off. I've got it. What he does. If you will allow me that, I think that would be $135,000 a year. Responsibilities. Do these seem a little blue sky? See that the laws of the state and local laws, resolutions, and rules of the village are faithfully executed. Isn't that what you do and the village lawyer? Isn't that what they do? Thought so. Exercise supervision over the conduct of all functions and activities of the village, all, and of its officers and employees, except for the village justice, well, he's pretty important. Village clerk, extremely important. She used to do his job in years past. The village treasurer, yeah, he's got the numbers. And the village council, yeah, and he knows the laws. But from time to time, that's a little vague, make reports to the Board of Trustees upon the affairs of the village. That's a little vague. And recommend to the board such measures as he may think necessary or appropriate. I don't know what that entails. Keep the Board of Trustees fully advised of the financial condition of the village and its future financial needs, which I would have thought that would be with the village clerk and the treasurer and the council, oh, that's true, he is the treasurer now, conduct a continuing study of all functions and activities, which includes 9,000 miles of driving around, for the purpose of devising ways and means of obtaining greater efficiency and economy, and have such powers, this is a good one, have such powers and duties, comma, not inconsistent with law, comma, as from time to time may be provided by resolution of the Board of Trustees. I've got a PhD in English, and I'm sorry, I can't quite figure that one out. That costs $135,000 a year, but this $250,000 suit thrown out of court, which is brought by the villagers, is something that is being mocked in this letter. Last, in their letter, they insist they are staunch Republicans and conservatives. So I'm going to let's take this out of the realm of politics. I would kind of like to know if the board, how the board feels, this board who all happen to be Republicans, of one of the biggest issues of our time, which is the violence, shootings in our schools, which could happen tomorrow at Cottle or Tuckahoe High School. I would really like to poll outside of the political realm if they support the NRA, or because they're staunch Republicans and conservatives, agree with our president that our teachers should be armed and that the Second Amendment is inviolate. This is a very important issue. It is not a political one. Could I?
It's absolutely not political. You can ask me the question, and I can tell you that I've had conversations with our chief of police, and we have actually delved into, the village does not have a school, as you're well aware of, in the village of Tuckahoe. The schools that we send our children to are located in the town of Eastchester. And I have met with our chief of police, who meets with our Eastchester police chief on issues that pertain to security in light of the shootings, the rash of shootings. Now, of course, we're all horrified about what's happened. My opinion of the president's position on the NRA and all that. You know what? This is the village of Tuckahoe. Ask me about my opinion of how we're picking up the garbage or how I'm going to address a blizzard that we're going to get on Wednesday. That's relevant to the job that I have here.
You don't think that you, Mayor, since you're not going to be speaking for the rest and they don't want to speak, you don't think that it is reasonable for the citizens of Tuckahoe to know how you stand on the issue of the Second Amendment and having teachers armed in school? Just an opinion. Because
you know what?
You may not be.
No, I haven't.
You may
Yeah.
not legislate it. You may not be the person.
Of course we can't. We don't legislate that. Actually, I don't. Honestly, I don't have an opinion on that. I really don't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll answer you, Mr. Mariani. I'll answer you. I have a 25-year career in law enforcement. Never been a member of the NRA, never been a member of the FOP, but that's my choice. It doesn't mean I don't support those organizations or am I against those organizations. Am I in favor of teachers having weapons in the school? Absolutely not. Because anyone that's in law enforcement, and I'll speak more to the police officers that are out there every day, carrying a gun is not what it's like on TV or in the movies. So it's something that I do not take very lightly, and it's a very, very bad idea. But with that being said, if you want to refer to school shootings, based on what the news report, we had armed officers down in Florida and failed to act. As to why that occurred, I don't know. But nonetheless, that's very disconcerting to me as well. So I hope that answers your question as far.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else wish to address the board? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just would like to respond to Mr. Mariani's comment about village administrator. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Eastchester has a full-time town supervisor. Tuckahoe, we're all part-time. We all serve this board on a part-time basis, as you know. You were once on this board, right? It's a very limited position. We're not here full-time to oversee what's going on in this village. So you do need to have somebody who's acting as an executive. As you'll see, Bronxville has a village administrator. Scarsdale has a village administrator. As a matter of fact, you'll see that in most communities that they do. So this isn't something that's far afield, Mr. Mariani, of common protocol, and really a way to make the village better. And in my opinion, it certainly has done that. And that's why you see in articles like in the New York Times about Tuckahoe being a very desirable place to be, something that's occurred over the past decade and is really a result of strong leadership, despite some of your insinuations to the contrary. So I do think that you frankly are not really speaking, in my mind, from a position of really comparing what is accurate as to what is best practice in a community as to how to run it. So I wanted to correct that.
Thank you, and please don't take my silence on not addressing what you were saying about the village administrator's position as an endorsement of the snide way in which you were actually explaining it. Because I can tell you, and I've said this to all the residents, I know I have explained this to all the residents, that I say this now, and I'll say this forever, that the best decision that this board has ever made was finally implementing the position of village administrator, whether it happened to be Mr. Burke or anybody else. But installing that position was critical to the financial viability and turnaround of this community, and it's proof positive when Moody's is putting us on the right track, and we go from a fund balance of the day our village administrator's position was formed, of a fund balance of minus $5,000 to today where it's nearly $2 million. So that doesn't happen by chance. That happens by a lot of hard work and a lot of great management at the top. And like it or not, the village administrator is at the top of the food chain here at Village Hall. So he does a fantastic job, and I am just anyway. So you know me by now. You know I'm not going to go for a back and forth argument with you. So I ask anybody else. Mike wanted to come up.
Hello, Mike Dardano, 62 Chestnut Street, Tuckahoe. I want to say that when the school shootings occurred, I reached out to the chief, and he got back to me right away, and he was very helpful. And then we ran into each other in the street and discussed it. So the chief is very accessible. So, if you want to ask him a question, ask him a question. He was wonderful. Also want to thank the DPW, too, for what they've done. They've done a great job, and we are lucky we haven't got hit too hard, thank God, with the storms. A couple of things. I wanted to let you know that I did have my meeting with Don Brown on ECAP, and I sent him my proposal tonight. It's supposed to be Friday, but whatever. And I sent it to him, and so we've got some good stuff going. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to be working hopefully with the chamber, but at least with local businesses, and we're going to do tours of businesses with high school students and hopefully with middle school students, where we get businesses to agree to see the students, and they're going to show them how they do their job and what kind of skills they're looking for.
Tours of Tuckahoe businesses or outside?
To start Tuckahoe, yeah. I mean, we're thinking about maybe doing it by district, like Main Street, or perhaps by industry, like restaurants or fitness, because we've got so many fitness places here. So we're going to toss around what's the best idea, how it'll work the best. It might be a combination of the two. And because the middle school students are available all year long, we're talking about doing something with them. There's still the summer program that ECAP does, and we're working on how we're going to do something in addition to that as well. And then we got a plan perhaps to do official internships for the kids, working with the chamber. So I haven't presented to the chamber yet. I had to meet with Don to make sure he was cool with it, and then it's a Google Doc that we're going to kind of go back and forth, and then once it's ready, he's going to present it to the board of ECAP for review.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We're excited about that. Also, after the election, I'll be talking about I've been talking to businesses, so I'm putting together that plan about promotion, so we can work with the chamber together with the village and promote businesses. So I've had a lot of good discussions with different businesses on some ideas. One idea is a food week, quarterly. Food week would be cool. Maybe a dessert week. Maybe a workout or you eat a muffin at Nutmeg and then you can go work out. So we've come up with a bunch of ideas. Nutmeg told me, the owner of Nutmeg told me that his biggest clientele is Yoga Haven. He's even going to build a closet for the women and men to put their yoga mats in.
Cool.
So it's kind of cool. So that's very positive. Third thing is, I did reach out to Kevin Carpenter, and he initially got back to me with some answers to some questions I had. I asked some subsequent questions that he didn't answer, and those questions had to deal really with what's going on regarding finding out about remediation costs. He seemed to get a little, I don't know if he did or not, he just didn't answer the question. So I'm going to ask him one more time, and then when he's here, presumably April or May, whatever.
Yeah, we're
that
going to
is.
try to get them down here.
Yeah, and I'll share those with everyone too, because I do have some information and whatnot that I would like to, because I would prefer to not have the village pay anything if possible. And then my final thing is, I don't want to get political. It's a shame that it had to get political tonight, but Antonio and Danny's not here. I want to talk to you about that letter personally, because I just had a wonderful conversation with Danny last weekend, and I just felt I'm just disturbed by it. So but I'll do it offline. But
Yeah, they'll be here after the meeting.
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I want to do it directly, but I feel I have to address that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Wood, 50 Lawrence Ave. I want to just briefly along those lines to address the letter, which I hope everyone read. Like, if people don't know what we're talking about, that's probably kind of irritating, but I have a copy if anybody wants it. Mostly I guess I wanted to give Trustee Leo and the other gentleman who's running the benefit of the doubt that it just was poorly worded, and that maybe that your intention was not to sound as if you were discounting the other candidates as not being fit to run against you, because the implication makes it sound like it has something to do with being women, which is just crazy, and like there's no way that that's what you could mean, because that would be insane.
Sarah, can I ask you? The meeting's going to be over in a couple of minutes. He'll be outside in the hall. You can ask him that question.
I mean,
and
I
show
have
him
a
the letter.
feeling-
I mean, show him what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would welcome to talk to him personally, but I feel like it's more about the community that we're sort of saying, I was at home with my kids on Sunday, and they saw some other kids running around passing out these flyers, and they were super excited. And so they went out and got it, and then I read it to them, and I mean, they were like, that doesn't sound so good. So I just wanted to put out there, not just to Trustee Leo, but to all of you who are Republicans, conservatives, that this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for the people who wrote it. It doesn't look good for the village. It doesn't look good for Republicans. It doesn't look good for our town. You should think about that when you're alienating people in your community. I don't think this works for anyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Anthony.
Anthony Fiore, 3 Midland Place. I ran 3 times in this village, and I changed parties. Everybody knows everybody knew before. I was taught never to bring anything up political here. I still
That's
go
right.
by it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But some did. And I said, as a candidate, everybody else can if they want to. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
I was taught the right way, not to bring it up.
That's the way it's been forever. So
Right.
yeah,
You're not
back to
supposed
Phil
to.
White.
You're
So
doing the right thing.
Yeah, thank you. At a debate, political conversations, they would be at a debate or at a coffee or at a. I can't say that there is or isn't a scheduled debate. So. All right. As. Yeah.
We are negotiating for a debate.
Okay.
So people, this is putting this
Good.
political stuff. I know, but technically, we're getting into a bad area.
Actually, you
here.
would, because the village, whenever there's a debate, whether it's a debate in November election or in March elections, the village goes ahead and posts it on our Tuckahoe scroll. If you ever, no, it would be an event. It would be something that would people in our community would attend. So there would be a posting of it. I know that, but you're obviously an educated and concerned voting constituent. I'm sure that you're talking to whatever party you are affiliated with to know whether or not there is a debate or not, or there's conversation. You know, you came down to our meeting. You know, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I have to believe that, you know, you would know whether you specifically would know whether there's a debate for sure.
Look,
I think it's really the responsibility of the party leaders to go ahead and get that message out. I mean, if there's a debate, whether it's the Democratic committee chairperson or the Republican or the conservative, they're gonna make every effort to get the word out to all of their registered constituents that, hey, you know what, there's a debate, you need to come on down to this debate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to let you talk to him offline. Mike, thank you. Did you have anything else? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, good. All right. As the gentleman actually mentioned earlier, I would like everyone to please just stand, and I would like to reflect for a minute for Stephen Quigley and Michael McHugh. A lot of people didn't know Michael. Amen. We miss Stephen an awful lot. So, with there being no other business tonight, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn this meeting, and do I have a second?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned, so till next time, Tuckahoe, have a very good evening.